The last time I saw my father, I was 18 years old, standing on the porch with a duffel bag and shaking hands, begging him to open the door. Tonight, I walked through the marble lobby of the downtown Hilton in heels he never saw me grow into. A gold-lettered banner above the ballroom read, "Congratulations, Principal Richard Carter, 40 years of excellence." The air smelled like catered salmon and stale champagne. Inside, they were clapping, toasting him, laughing at stories I was written out of. I stood at the threshold for a moment, just outside the double doors. My reflection stared back at me from the glass, the same sharp jaw he used to say came from his side of the family. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the envelope, yellowed, creased down the center, my handwriting in blue ink, the letter I wrote the night I left, the one they never let anyone read. I hadn't come to ruin his party, that would be too easy. No, I came because silence had protected him long enough. Because every lie he told about me had been accepted as fact. Because 10 years ago, he said, "She ran away, she's never coming back." Well, I was back, and I brought receipts. The band inside started playing soft jazz. My cue. I slid the letter back into my coat, lifted my chin, and pushed the doors open. People turned, their faces shifted from polite curiosity to frozen recognition. Glasses paused midair. The toast stopped mid-sentence. And at the center of it all, standing beside a giant photo collage of student awards and smiling class portraits, was my father. His smile vanished the moment he saw me. And I smiled right back. There was a time when my father called me his pride and joy. At school board dinners and parent-teacher nights, I was the golden girl, valedictorian track, AP classes, flute solos at winter concerts. He'd walk down the halls of Carter High, his school, with a hand on my shoulder like I was his proof of greatness. "That's my Emily, future lawyer, maybe Harvard, if they're lucky." But behind closed doors, his praise had rules. I had to perform, always. Any grade below an A came with silence and cold eyes. If I missed a student council meeting for a rehearsal, he called it wasting potential. The year I turned 17, I started writing plays in secret. Just little scenes, mostly about mothers who left and daughters who stayed. One day, my drama teacher entered a piece into a regional competition without telling me. I won. Juilliard sent me an email, full scholarship to their pre-college summer intensive. I waited 2 days to show my dad. I wanted to get the words right. We were sitting at the kitchen table eating spaghetti. I said, "It's theater, but it's serious, it's real, this is what I want." He didn't look at me. He just twirled his fork and said, "I didn't raise you to chase dreams." Then he pushed his chair back and left the table. The silence after that conversation was colder than any punishment. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just erased the possibility. From that day on, I felt like I was living in someone else's version of me. I kept rehearsing quietly out of the house. I filled out my own FAFSA. I worked shifts at a bookstore under a different name so it wouldn't show up on his taxes. By senior spring, I had a dorm assignment in New York and a train ticket. I left him a letter, 1 page, handwritten. "I love you, I need space to think, I'll be home someday." I thought that would be enough. I thought he'd be angry, maybe even scared. But I never imagined this man, the one who used to cheer the loudest at my concerts, would choose to burn the whole bridge instead of just meeting me halfway. I came back Sunday afternoon, like I said I would. The train ride home was quiet. I kept imagining his face, maybe worried, maybe softened by the space. I rehearsed what I'd say. "I'm sorry for scaring you, I just needed air, but I'm not giving up on this." But when I walked up to the front porch, my key didn't fit the door. At first, I thought it was jammed. I jiggled it, tried again. Then I noticed the porch light was off. It was always on when someone was home. I rang the bell, knocked, waited, nothing. Called his phone, straight to voicemail. Then I tried Mom's, also dead. That's when I looked to the right and saw it. My suitcase. Sitting neatly beside the porch swing. Zipped. Labeled like a forgotten donation. On top of it was a plastic bag holding my birth certificate, my social security card, and a yellow post-it note. "You made your choice, good luck." My hands went cold. I sat on the steps for hours. I couldn't stop staring at the door like if I blinked, it would open. It never did. The neighbors walked past with their dogs, and I saw it in their eyes, pity, disgust, confirmation. They knew. 2 days later, I crashed on my friend Leah's couch and logged into Facebook. And there it was, a status from my aunt posted the same day I left. "Please pray for our family, Emily has run away, she left a hateful note, and we fear she's with someone dangerous." The comments were endless. "So sorry, praying. She always seemed troubled. Kids these days." He made it look like I ran off with an older man. That I left in anger. That I was unstable. My mom blocked my number. My drama teacher stopped replying to emails. 1 week later, my college acceptance was withdrawn after my transcript was marked incomplete. I hadn't just been abandoned, I had been disappeared. And no one, not a single person who once called themselves family, ever asked me what really happened. The first night I slept on Leah's couch, I cried into a hoodie I used as a pillow. By the third night, I learned how to cry without making noise. I got a job waitressing at a 24-hour diner on 6th Street, night shifts mostly. The kind of place where the coffee never runs out and no one asks you why your eyes are swollen. I scrubbed floors, took double shifts, and signed up for community college courses under a payment plan. No family. No FAFSA. No support. Just me, a second-hand laptop, and a bank account that never stayed above $50 for more than 2 days. I kept my head down. Didn't tell anyone where I came from. When people asked about my parents, I said, they're back east. Technically true, emotionally, they were gone. What hurt more than the silence was how easy it was for everyone to believe I didn't exist anymore. No one came looking. No one even posted a photo asking if I was okay. It was like I'd never been part of their story to begin with. But little by little, I built something. I took acting classes at night, did lighting tech on weekends for off-Broadway shows. Eventually, someone read a monologue I wrote and said, "This isn't just good, this is yours." I wrote a one-woman show called Inheritance. It was about a girl erased by her own family. It played 3 nights in a black box theater in Brooklyn. Only 10 people came, but one of them was a columnist from the New York Times working on a piece about estrangement. She asked to interview me. I said yes. The article was called What We Leave Behind When We Leave Home. My father's name was never mentioned. But I know he read it, because 3 days after it was published, someone tried to reset the password to my email. I didn't flinch. By then, I had moved into a small apartment of my own. I had friends who knew my real story. A life I had built, brick by brick. And still, the silence from home remained the loudest sound in my life. It started with a Facebook message from my cousin Mia. We hadn't spoken since I was 17. She was always the wild one, bleach blonde streaks, skipped curfews, grounded more than she was free. But that night, she sent just 6 words. I found something, it's about you. I didn't reply right away, I stared at the screen like it was a ghost. 3 days later, curiosity overrode self-protection, I called her. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry I never reached out, I believed what they said, we all did. She told me she'd been helping her dad clean out their attic. Boxes of old tax returns. Moldy holiday decorations. Junk from when her mom taught kindergarten. At the bottom of one box, wrapped in a Ziploc bag, was a sealed envelope. It had my name on it, my handwriting. Blue ink. Slanted cursive I hadn't used in years. She opened it, read it, and realized everything she'd been told was a lie. I love you, I need space, I'll be back Sunday. No mention of anger, no threat. No disappearance, just a scared, respectful 18-year-old asking for time. Mia said her dad tried to play it off. Oh, that old thing, but she knew, he knew, they all knew. My father didn't just lie, he took the truth, my actual words, and hid them in a dusty attic like something shameful, and then he replaced them with a version that made him the victim. That night, Mia emailed me a scanned copy of the letter. I printed it, smoothed the creases, and stared at it for a long time. It was like finding the last puzzle piece to a life I'd been gaslit into forgetting. Not long after, the retirement party invite hit social media. Big celebration, local school board, teachers, families, community leaders, a tribute to a legacy of integrity. I didn't cry when I saw it, I didn't scream, I just looked at the letter in my hands and thought, you buried the truth, I'm going to dig it back up in front of everyone. I didn't decide right away. The letter sat on my desk for a week, next to a burned-down candle and a cup of cold coffee I never drank. Every time I looked at it, I thought about the silence that followed it. The birthdays missed. The college I never attended. The years I spent rebuilding something that was never supposed to be broken. Then I saw the RSVP form. It was posted on the school district's website. Join us in celebrating Principal Richard Carter's retirement, 40 years of service, leadership, and family. Family. That word felt like a dare. I used my middle name, Elaine, to RSVP online. 1 guest, no mille preference, no +1. I didn't need backup, I had the truth. I booked a flight, borrowed a blazer from a friend, and packed 2 things, the printed scan of my letter and a clipping of the article I published in the New Yorker last year. I didn't rehearse a speech. This wasn't about revenge or theatrics, it was about reality, raw. unpolished, undeniable. He'd built a career on discipline and image, on shaping other people's children. He got to be the man with the handshake and the clipboard and the bulletin board full of smiling kids. But he left one picture out. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to cry, I was just going to walk in, look him in the eye, and remind everyone in that room, you don't get to rewrite history just because you're the only one left telling it. I hadn't seen my mother in over a decade, not since the night I stood on our porch with shaking hands and tear-swollen eyes, begging her to open the door. She didn't. But 2 hours before the gala, I stood there again. Same porch, same front step. The paint was peeling now, the bushes overgrown. The wind carried the smell of someone else's dinner. I rang the bell, no answer. I was about to leave when the door cracked open. She looked older, thinner, grayer. Her shoulders hunched like life had been pressing down on her for years. Her eyes landed on me, and for a moment, I saw something flicker, recognition, guilt, relief. Emily, she whispered, like the name hurt her throat. I asked one question. Did you know? She didn't ask what I meant, she didn't have to. She stepped outside, wrapped her cardigan tight around her chest, and sat on the porch swing. I stood, I needed to stand. Found the letter, I said, the real one, the one I wrote before I came back home, the one he hid. She closed her eyes, a slow, silent nod. I wanted to come after you, she said, I really did, why didn't you? She looked out toward the street. He said you were unstable, that you joined up with some older man, that we needed to protect ourselves, that if I reached out, it would only make things worse. I stared at her, and you believed that? I believed him, she whispered, because I was afraid of him too. In that moment, I didn't feel anger, I felt something colder. Detachment, not hatred, just distance. She wasn't the villain, but she wasn't innocent either. She was the silence that made his lie stick. The ballroom smelled like expensive wine and overcooked salmon. Laughter bounced off crystal chandeliers. People hugged, posed for photos in front of a giant poster that read, "Celebrating Principal Richard Carter, a legacy of integrity." I stood near the back, close enough to hear the clinking glasses, far enough to stay invisible, until they called him up. 40 years of service, a mentor, a role model, a father figure to so many. He walked on stage in a tailored navy suit, smiling the way only men with unchallenged legacies smile. The crowd stood, clapped. Even the mayor was there. I let the applause settle before I moved. One step, then another. People turned as I approached. Eyes widened, some faces lit with recognition, others with discomfort. And then he saw me. Richard Carter froze. The color drained from his face like someone pulled a plug. I didn't look away. I reached the mic. He leaned toward me and whispered, "Emily, not here." But I was already speaking. "Hi, I'm Emily Carter, his daughter." Gasps, murmurs, forks paused mid-bite. "I haven't been in this room, or this town, in 10 years. That's because 10 years ago, my father told everyone I ran away, that I was angry, that I disowned him. He told you I left a note." I pulled the envelope from my coat. "This is that note." I read it slowly, clearly, so no one could pretend they didn't hear. "I love you, I need space, I'll be back Sunday." I looked out at the crowd. Familiar faces, teachers, neighbors, my old principal. Does that sound like someone who ran away? Silence, the kind that settles into your spine. Then shifting chairs, uneasy stares. A few people looked at Richard. One woman covered her mouth. He stepped forward. "Emily, that's not the full story." I held up a hand. "Don't, you told that story for 10 years, this is mine." A voice from the crowd, "Is that why she vanished?" Another, "I remember praying for her." Then Mia stood up. She held a phone displaying a scan of the original letter. "He hid it," she said, "for 10 years, he let us believe something that wasn't true." I watched it happen, the unraveling. His reputation, stitched so carefully together, coming undone thread by thread. Someone whispered, "What else did he lie about?" His jaw tightened, his hands shook. He looked at me like I'd lit the match. But I didn't burn anything, I just brought the truth. And the truth doesn't whisper, it echoes. Once the first crack appears, the rest comes down fast. He tried to keep smiling, tried to salvage the moment, waving his hand like I was just some emotional interruption. But the room had shifted. People weren't looking at him with admiration anymore. They were looking at him like a stranger. One of his former colleagues, Mrs. Blake, the vice principal for 20 years, stood up and said, "I always wondered why you shut down the theater department so suddenly." Another man, an old guidance counselor, added, "You told us she had a breakdown, that she was dangerous." I didn't say anything, I didn't need to. They were doing it for me now. Even the school superintendent, the one who had just toasted him 10 minutes earlier, stepped away from the podium and folded his arms. He wasn't smiling either. Then someone near the back said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You made her disappear to protect your image." My father didn't speak. He looked around the room and saw the empire he built wasn't made of brick. It was made of borrowed belief. And belief, once cracked, doesn't hold. He finally stepped back from the microphone. No apology, no explanation. Just a quiet retreat to his table, where even my mother refused to meet his eyes. The slideshow kept playing behind him, photos of science fairs, graduation handshakes, award ceremonies. But no one was watching anymore. Because the story had changed. And so had the man. I didn't stay for cake. While people whispered and plates were cleared in silence, I slipped out the side door and stepped into the cool night air. The sky was a deep navy. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe all the way down to my ribs. Mia followed a few minutes later. She didn't say anything right away. She just stood next to me on the curb like we were waiting for a bus that wasn't coming. Finally, she said, "You were brave." I shook my head. No, I was overdue. We stood there quietly. The hum of traffic in the background. The gala muffled behind thick hotel walls. It felt like standing outside a funeral. Except no one had died. They'd just been seen for who they really were. "I think I spent years just wanting someone to believe me," I said. And I realized I didn't need belief. I needed the silence to stop. Mia nodded. "You ended it." "No," I replied. "I reclaimed it." I looked down at the envelope in my hand. The letter that was never meant to disappear. The words that were never meant to be buried. I didn't need to hand it to anyone. I didn't need my father to read it. He'd already heard every word. And so had they. I turned to Mia and smiled. He built his legacy on silence. I took it back. Then we walked away. Not as exiles. Not as victims. But as women no longer living in someone else's story.